Yes, it is the Rob Dibble Show. Rob on vacation, so the fellas are holding down the fort with big shoes to fill. Michael Johnson Jr., Nick Federico, and Kurt Kaplan here on your afternoon drive here, Fox Sports Radio 97.9 in Hartford and 1300 AM in New Haven. Download and listen to that free iHeartRadio app. Joining us is one of the very best when it comes to covering the Boston Red Sox. It is Sean McAdam. Follow him first and foremost on social media, on X and Twitter. Again, whatever you may call it, at Sean_McAdam. And he is the columnist and supervising reporter of the Boston Red Sox for MassLive.com. And he's kind enough to join us for a few minutes. How are you, Sean?
I'm good, Michael. How's everybody?
We're good. We're good. Thank you very much for a few minutes, as always. Wow. If I had told you 6 weeks ago, Sean, that the Red Sox would be 63-51 and have won 26 of their last 29, you would have said what?
I would have said it's time for you to seek professional help and or get yourself to Vegas while they're still going well, because nobody saw this coming, and frankly, nobody saw it lasting as long as it's been. But, you know, it's not just the 15-game winning streak. It's not just the current 8-game winning streak. It's the, 31-5 over the last 36. It's the 34-8 or whatever it is over the last 42. You're not talking about more than a quarter of the season that they have had the best record in baseball and completely turned their season around.
It really has been unbelievable, something to marvel at. And look no further than last night, Sean, right? I mean, a game where they trailed from the 3rd to the 12th inning, yet somehow, some way, the Cardiac Kids do it again. They win in 13 innings. What was the atmosphere like? Let's start there at Fenway Park last night. And what's it been like throughout this epic summer that they've been having?
Yeah, well, if you think back, not only were they not playing well, they were playing poorly at home.
That's
right. They had one of the worst home records in baseball, and in fact, the beginning of that 15-game win streak originated on the road. They had dropped 2 to Washington after sweeping the Yankees, and it was kind of another, 1 step forward, 2 step back. Yeah. Then they went on the road and ripped off 9 in a row, 3 in Anaheim, 3 in Chicago, 3 against the Mets, and that's where it all started. But until they came home from that trip, they really weren't even playing well at home. So while people got excited about what they accomplished on the road, it was kind of like, well, can we have some of this at Fenway? And then it started. And they came out of the break and swept Tampa Bay on that first series and haven't let up since. And you definitely have seen a very different atmosphere and environment at Fenway where people are into it. They last night was not the case. They fell behind 4-0, and as you pointed out, never led until they scored the winning run in the bottom of the 13th.
Right.
But there was a feeling in the ballpark that, a couple of runs, that's no big deal. We've overcome that before, and that's kind of that positive spirit that's been emanating at the ballpark, because you show up now, and in marked contrast to what you were seeing in April, May, and June, you're expecting them to win regardless of opponent. And they've beaten some good teams, obviously. Yeah. They swept Chicago, a first-place team, maybe not a powerhouse, but a team with a winning record. They swept the Dodgers last weekend in L.A. It doesn't matter who they face. They're winning every series, 9 in a row.
Yeah, and they're finding different ways to win, too. It's been extremely, extremely impressive. You want to talk about the trade deadline quickly, and your tweet, which we referenced during the show, nothing like getting, we already knew you had a good following, Sean, but 2.1 million impressions on Twitter is not bad at all on Monday, circa the Adley Rutschman tweet. So the Sox go out. They're aggressive. They get Rutschman. We know he'll be back hopefully at some point. We know injuries have been a little bit of a bugaboo for him in his career with Baltimore. But how would you personally assess how the Red Sox did, Craig Breslow and company did at the trade deadline?
Well, I think they did give up a lot. I mean, there's no getting away from that. But when you're talking about a 3-time All-Star catcher, a guy kind of in his prime at 28, and someone who was also being pursued by the Yankees, that's going to necessarily drive the asking price up. So in giving up Ianson and Witherspoon, their 2 best starting pitching prospects, plus the guy that most people consider their third best position player prospect. That's a lot for a guy with a year and a couple of months of control, but it was a offensive upgrade that they needed in the lineup. It was a position that has really been kind of mediocre for them for quite a while now behind the plate, and this was a chance to not only impact this pennant race, but all of next year, and who knows whether they extend him or not. There is at least that option for him to be here beyond 27 if they want to be aggressive there. But I saw this whole deadline as the Red Sox taking a look at the American League and saying, hey, why not us? They were not that far behind Tampa Bay and New York. They're even closer now. They're tied in the loss column with the Yankees. They're a half game behind them. They're only 5 out from Tampa with 7 weeks to play and one more series against them. So it is not a great year in the American League. It's not like the National League where you have Milwaukee and the Dodgers and the Braves all playing 600 or better ball. There isn't a runaway team here.
Yep.
So I think the Red Sox saw a lane that if they filled some needs and made themselves better, that they could put themselves on the same level as anybody else in the AL.
Hey, Sean, Nick here. Myself, like Michael, are the resident Yankees fans here on the program. On the outside looking in, obviously, in general, the streak that the Red Sox have gone on, I think they've swept 7 of their last 13 series, swept the Dodgers, swept the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley, like you've mentioned. It's truly remarkable and historic in many senses. But on the outside looking in as a Yanks fan, one of the biggest surprises to me is that they're doing all of this without a lot of household names, and also without Adley Rutschman being available in the immediate term from the trade deadline. They've been without Garrett Crochet, their bona fide ace.
Yep.
They've been without Roman Anthony, who doesn't have an exact set return date. Just speak on just how remarkable it is that they're doing it with some not so known household names. And is this something that you truly expected them to be able to, right the ship in a sense? Did they ever, in your eyes, have this ability to do a complete 180 on their season, or is this truly out of left field?
Yeah, I think it's, look, let's rewind back to the start of the season. I think a lot of people thought the Red Sox were a playoff team. They were a year ago. Mm-hmm. They lost Bregman, obviously, but they added Suarez, they added Gray, they added Contreras. I don't think anyone thought they were going to run off and hide in the AL East, but people thought, they should at least be a wild card team again. I think people are kind of forgetting that now because they're saying, whoa, this has come out of nowhere. All of a sudden the Red Sox have almost the second best record in the league, but this is who they were supposed to be. The problem is, as you alluded to, it's not how they were supposed to get here. They did not have Crochet. They had a month of Garrett Crochet, a little less actually. They had about a little more than a month of Roman Anthony, who wasn't performing particularly well when he was healthy. Those guys are not back. I think in a best-case scenario, they're back in September, if at all. So the fact that, you're starting Andrew Monasterio at shortstop every day, that you're choosing between Nick Sogard and Anthony Siegler as your second baseman, nobody saw that coming. And, you're supposed to be good teams. They're supposed to be solid up the middle. They didn't like what they had in catching, so they made a trade. They're playing journeyman or 4A guys in the middle of the infield. Yeah, in center field, Cedon Rafael has been an all-star and been his usual Gold Glove self, but they haven't taken a traditional route to get here. And I guess that's the surprise element here. If they had gotten, healthy with Crochet and Anthony on July 1st, you think, okay, then a bounce back and a course correction might be in order, but they haven't gotten those guys back yet, and still they're playing 8-something ball for the last month and a half, which doesn't make any sense, but that makes it even more fun to appreciate, I guess.
As a Yankees fan, Sean, obviously a deep playoff run or potentially a World Series winning run for the Yankees is contingent largely in the fact of Aaron Judge coming back and being healthy and playing like his MVP self, along with receiving Stanton back off the IL and getting a healthy Cody Bellinger back into this lineup. If you can get Garrett Crochet back in form off the IL, get Roman Anthony back, and Adley Rutschman seems to fit in seamlessly coming off the IL as well, what do you think is the true ceiling for this Boston Red Sox team if they can maintain this level of play until you get some of those superstars back?
Yeah, I think it's a very competitive three-team race as to who wins the pennant and represents the American League in the World Series. There's 5 games separating the 3 teams. As I said, the Red Sox have 4 left in New York and 3 left at the Trop in September. So they have some additional head-to-head chance to make up some ground. But I think we all know that all 3 teams are going to be in the postseason. And then it's a matter of who's healthiest and whose pitching is lined up the right way. That's how it always is in October. So I'm not smart enough to sit here and tell you which of those 3 teams is going to emerge, but I would say that it wouldn't surprise me to see any one of them representing the American League in the World Series.
Talking with Sean McAdam here on the Rob Dibble Show on your Friday afternoon drive. Columnist, supervising reporter for the Red Sox at MassLive.com. Again, follow him on Twitter at Sean_McAdam. Sean, at what point do the Red Sox just remove the interim tag and dub Chad Tracy the manager? I mean, is it fair to say he's done more than enough to earn that right with how they've been playing?
He certainly has, but I don't see that happening before the end of the season.
Yeah.
They've had ample opportunity to do it. I've said all along that I think Tracy's fate is sort of intertwined with that of Craig Breslow. And a couple of months ago, that probably meant bad news for Chad Tracy because a lot of people were expecting that that this third season would be Craig Breslow's last. It seems pretty obvious now that's not going to be the case unless all of a sudden this team nosedives the way it has taken off in the opposite direction. I don't think anyone is expecting a collapse like that. So I think as long as they get to October, Breslow's safe, and then it's his decision whether to extend Tracy, and at that point, how can you not, given the job he's done and the turnaround that he's oversaw and engineered.
Yeah, one more question before we let you go from myself, Sean. As a Yankees fan, I think we hold this team, obviously, and as a team and organization, to very high standards, given their success in the past decades and just throughout their history. And sometimes we can get a little doom and gloom. I'm sure Michael would agree with that sentiment. But as covering the Red Sox on your end, are we being a little too doom and gloom towards Brian Cashman and the front brass for their lack of pulling the trigger on some big moves in the trade deadline? Because it seems to us as Yankees fans, obviously Luis Garcia Jr. has fit in fantastic. He hit the ground running. But we already had Ben Rice, who was a left-handed hitting DH and first baseman, and we didn't go out and get a catcher, which we much desperately needed. And we didn't get any relief help either. So do you think, as a Red Sox, getting some Red Sox coverage on your end, do you believe they did enough, or are you just as puzzled as we are?
Well, I guess I'm somewhere in between. I don't think it was a complete failure on Brian Cashman's part. I know that they were looking to upgrade a catcher, get another bat, maybe get some additional bullpen help, and they only did some of that with Garcia and Ramos. So I think he kind of improved the team around the edges, and I think what Cashman is doing is kind of moving all his chips to the table and figuring that Judge and Stanton and Bellinger are all going to be healthy when it matters, and that Fried and Cole are going to remain healthy. And as long as you have those 5 guys, then you stand a pretty good chance in October. Now, I know that the Yankee fans are getting tired of, just getting there. They haven't won it all since 2009, and there's some urgency there for them to win another championship. But, I mean, Brian Cashman's been in that job a long time. He's lasted 30 years in that job. They've never had a losing record with him as the general manager. They make the playoffs about 80% of the time. And I think there is some truth to the notion that when you get to October, there's a lot of luck involved. A lot of it is being at the right place, right time, getting a few breaks, being healthy, all of that. It hasn't worked out for the Yankees lately. They did get to the World Series as recently as a couple of years ago. So, for somebody who has covered the tumultuous leadership change in Boston over the last 15 years, where they seemingly change the lead baseball executive every 3 years like clockwork, then I think there's something to be said for the stability and the success that Cashman has brought to the job.
All right, Sean, last question we promised before we let you go. And as a reporter, you get a lot of interesting and good stats and have a lot of knowledge on your end. I'm curious because we've seen a lot of them floating around Twitter, or one you've got in your own possession yourself for day-to-day. What is the most impressive and interesting stat you have found related to the Boston Red Sox, historically speaking, during this unreal 6-week run they're on?
It would probably be bullpen ERA, which I think it took a bit of a hit last night, obviously, because they were like two heavyweight fighters trading punches there in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Right.
And they got a short start, atypically, out of Ranger Suarez.
Yeah.
So that number undoubtedly went up last night. I haven't checked it today, but I think it was 0.79 during that 35-game stretch, which is just uncanny, as you guys know. Bullpen ERAs can blow up in a hurry. You have one bad outing where you give up, 3 or 4 runs, and all of a sudden your ERA jumps by a run and a half or 2 runs. So the fact that, and they've done a lot of good things. They've had pretty solid starting pitching. Their home runs have increased. They've slugged better. But to me, being able to protect late inning leads and withstand comeback efforts by the opposition, and to do it for a span of 6 weeks, as this bullpen has done, is pretty remarkable. So I'd say that's the outlier number that stands out to me.
Sean, you're the best, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the ride. I mean, this has been historically good. We know it's a long way to go still to get to the finish line in October, but Red Sox have captivated baseball fans. Even if from us, a couple of Yankees fans, you tip your cap. I mean, it's pretty special what's been going on. We'll see what they do tonight in this series against the Athletics at home against Fenway. But thank you for a few minutes, Sean. Keep up the good work. We appreciate you hopping on as always.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Sean McAdam.